So we are the speakers. We have been here all day for you. Did you enjoy our talks? Okay, thank you. Yeah, which one? Yeah, we will ask that question later, okay? So nobody get offended. So do you have any questions for us? The questions regarding NGRX, rendering in terminal, Bazel, RxJS, career, Angular in depth, yeah, advocacy, open source, beer, karaoke.
There's a question.
Okay, there's a question. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you for great talks.
We need to click on. Okay.
1, 2, 3. Okay. You inspire me. Okay, so thank you for the great talks. My question is concerning like the general Angular developer development. So say I am a mid-range developer already. I know pretty well Angular. I know there is a on-push change detection. I know I should use it. I sometimes use it. I sometimes I don't. But speaking seriously, like in your opinion, as a developer who is transitioning or to transition to a more robust and senior level, to transition to a better, to be able to better build Angular applications, what should I invest my time in when I have a basic or pretty robust knowledge of how Angular functions overall and some experience having built a few Angular applications? Should I invest in learning what are the architecture ways to build applications, monorepo, using NX, or maybe some other approach? Or should I invest my time in learning how to optimize Angular applications or how to use different build systems? Maybe from your personal perspective, what are the, or RxJS, what are the critical things to really be proficient in to be a good Angular developer?
So I think we'll have different answers.
Yeah, you can, every one of you can answer.
So, don't use Bazel. No, for me, I think you should focus on architecture. Like the more senior you become, the more architecture patterns you need to know, and probably the less like in detail line of like the name of the component, the name of the function you need to remember, because there is documentation for that and there is auto-completion. But you should know that this function exists and what it does. But your time would be better spent on more high-level architecture, like especially if, like in your company, if you are leading like teams of senior or junior developers. So for me, it would be architecture. Yes.
1, 2, 1, 2. Should I sing a song? No. Okay. Okay. So I think it's pretty cool to not only learn about Angular or architecture in Angular. I would principally recommend you to read in general about architecture, in general about different frameworks, how the different approaches are, to compare them and so on, so that you get a better knowledge of the differences and different approaches.
Yeah, right. So like SecuRS in your case help you when you learn from backend how that works?
I probably say you should try to learn what interests you the most, because then you are more excited and you can go through faster. You'll bring more benefits to yourself. But also at the same time, if you're at that level already, mentor your team. This is how you get from senior developer, you get to more like a 10x developer, because just teaching a few team members of your team how to be more productive becomes entire team like 10 times more productive. So that's another thing to focus on.
Well, you asked about personal opinions. My personal opinion is learn, or how can you say, describe, because it's not been very well described. There's a lot of component patterns that can be reused between components in different use cases. So that's worth exploring. And then just a personal preference is try to master RxJS.
You hit me hard.
Okay. As for me, the most important is to have a beard, first of all. It's the most important part. For girls? Yeah, maybe. Why not? As for me, yeah, fake beards are awesome too. So, as guys told before me, it's crucial to learn some architectural patterns and other things. And as for me, it's the most easiest way to learn that patterns is just investigate different areas, like different frameworks, different languages, and then compare them. I think it's the easiest way to learn and completely understand them.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what I want to add is, I don't know, I think that most web developers, well, I assume a lot of web developers don't have proper computer science background, like myself, for example. I didn't study data structures or algorithms, all that hardcore stuff. And we don't really use it in our everyday life. So the valid question is, do we need to know that? And I think once you've managed to learn the stuff that is required for your work, it's a good approach to start venturing into this hardcore computer science topics, right? Like, for example, dependency graph. And then it's exciting to find projects that use these concepts. Like, for example, all build systems use dependency graphs. So the algorithm, this data structure and the algorithm, how to walk graphs. And I think it can expand your knowledge. And yeah, so invest time in that too. That's also important.
Thank you all.
So thank you a lot for all these astonishing reports. And my question is, so for a long time, it was it were such main milestones for Angular, like Ivy, like Angular elements, like powerful state management libraries. And now all of them are achieved. So I'm interested, what is your vision? What is your next main milestones? What is the direction of Angular for next few years?
So one upcoming milestone is Bazel, is getting Bazel stable in this CLI. So yeah, Ivy and Bazel are the next things to stabilize in both the framework and the tooling, the CLI. So for Ivy, once this gets stabilized in V9, so the team can focus on adding more features for Angular. Because for now, the main focus is just to have the new implementation ready and stable with no changes. And then after, for V10, V11, all the stuff, add maybe more features, which I don't know about yet, because it will come after, with depending on the needs, all that stuff. But on the tooling side, of course, is really making Bazel work really great and with the best performance possible.
And also, I think you just need to watch a number of talks from the NGCon from this year, because there were a number of talks where guys from Angular described what they are doing now and what they are going to do in nearest years. So such a keynotes or a number of different talks.
Yeah, so if you think about a framework, you have runtime performance, like change detection, for example, and then what they call time to interactive, and the size of the bundle and how fast your code will start executing. So I think that frameworks at this point have reached the state where they are pretty fast for runtime. Like change detection runs very fast in Angular and React, all other frameworks. And also the other case with Angular is how easy it is to use the framework. And I think Ivy will be a significant improvement because we no longer will have any factories. So dynamic stuff will be a lot easier to do. And I think this is also what I saw at ngConf intros. They are looking at this point how to enable your code to run faster, how to decrease time to interactive. And that is achieved with lazy loading, like lazy loading components one by one instead of loading the entire bundle, bootstrap an entire application. So I think this is my take from all the articles I've read. Yeah, also the concept of rehydration, server-side rendered applications that then get their state reinitialized on the client. So I think this is where they're moving.
Just want to add, you need to subscribe to the GitHub repo. So everything is open source and transparent. So if there is every new feature coming or needs to have a design doc or discussion, it will be there.
The next big thing is getting rid of Angular modules. No, but seriously, Ivy, once it gets released, it'll open the door to a lot of awesome things, like not having ng modules anymore, for example. That could become a thing, but also they will still be around, unfortunately. So, but that'll give you some time to restructure applications. So they're definitely optional, but I want to build without any modules. But another thing that Ivy will enable us to do at some point, in some unknown point in time, is better dynamic composition of applications and external plugin modules, runtime translation, a thing called features, which is part of components in Ivy. That has not been very much in the public attention yet, but that's a major new thing that'll come eventually. Well, it's actually already there, but some tooling is missing. And then code splitting on a component level, which means without modules. So those are kind of some big milestones that are out there in the not too distant future, hopefully.
Nginx, of course. Yeah, so I can talk a little bit, I guess, about Nginx and RxJS. So I'll start with RxJS. So RxJS has a very busy roadmap, but they're also trying not to break things too fast. They just got all the typings right as well. The plan for RxJS is to make it a lot smaller than it is right now, more tree shakeable and even smaller. They have a plan for it, but it's like a almost 2-year plan to get there, or 1.5-year plan. Unfortunately, Ben also is leaving Angular team, but maybe fortunately for RxJS because he can focus more on it as well. We'll see. And as for Nginx, since all of you know about it, or most of you know about it, we're quite happy to have the version 8 out with tons of improvements. The team worked really, really hard, a lot of time. Because again, we do it in our personal times mostly. So the entire team was working really hard to get all the creation factories, create actions, and create reducer. And once I got the create action in, I couldn't force myself to continue work on the product to use the class-based actions. There is this huge size difference. So yeah, go check. There's an official article on the Nginx blog, and then there's my article at Angular Devs blog about them.
Yeah. With regards to Nginx, I think that the next big challenge for all frameworks, and Angular is also specifically is state management. I think this is what still like the community is looking for the ideal solution. And I've been told that like almost every week Angular team discusses the issue of state management. What is the best way to handle it? What is the easiest way to handle it? So this is other thing that needs to be solved. Maybe NGRX will find also the way to do it most efficiently. Okay, any more questions?
Yeah, sure. Thank you guys all for your great talks. The question came from the enterprise sector niche. You know that Angular itself is a great tool. I mean that it's a framework, but talking about the enterprise, it is pretty interesting. What do you think about for instance, Narwhal? Narwhal. This is the set of the rules, of the patterns, and I'm interested in your opinion. You already mentioned about the Viktor Savkin.
Yeah. So
now, it is interesting. What are you thinking about the Narwhal set of the patterns? It's related to the, for instance, data persistent. It's related to the monorepo, related to the combine of the libraries, applications. It's all about the Angular ecosystem.
So at Google, we're not using NX. And NX is trying to model some of the best practices that we are using at Google. Victor and Jeff are ex-Googlers, ex-Angular team, and they have, I think, a few more Googlers as part of the team, and they have also very smart engineers as their employees as well, big James or, yeah. So I think they're really trying to bring all the learnings they had within Google, be it monorepo, be it other practices, and try to have enterprises easier way to implement them. So I think it's a good tool. I personally don't use it, but I know of it. We talk with Victor sometimes. He's in my city in Toronto as well. So yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah. Again, I am not using their products at this point because I haven't written a line of code in, I don't know, 8 months. And they say develop like Google, right? This is their core message. Yeah. So I think I read once an article that said like not every company needs to be Google. Like they don't have the requirements, don't have user base. So I don't think there can be any one definite answer, like use it or not use it. You need to try that. But what is definitely missing is some use cases or case studies, right? So, and this is the message I want to send also. Don't be afraid to test, to try, to experiment, and share what you've learned. Because I think a lot of people used, for example, NGRX or other state management libraries internally, then found things why it didn't work for them or worked for them, but they never told anyone. So this knowledge is preserved within these teams, and we, for example, as a community, have no way to know that, right? So the same thing with NX. There are a lot of articles how to use it, maybe when to use it, but very few case studies. The companies that adopted that approach and some lessons they learned, whether it worked for them or not. So if it's interesting for you, I would give it a try and figure it out, and then share your knowledge with all of us. Yeah.
Start a blog at least, right?
Start what?
Start a blog.
Yeah. You don't need to start a blog. We have Angular in depth. Just get in touch.
So I used it for a long time. one drawback that I experienced, beside the really good stuff that they do, is if you rely on a third-party library, you never know when they upgrade to the next version. And I had several problems from 5.6, from 6 to 7, I'm not sure which version. They did not upgrade several things that I was using really heavily in either my projects or my workshops, and this was not the best feeling for me, but still I use it a lot because they have a more smooth integration, I believe. So I also use their schematics for NGRX way more often than the original one, because for me the typing is better, the setup is better, it's better structured and so on. But yeah, upgrading is, you never know.
Yeah, you talked about schematics. That's a good point. If in your company you're already using some patterns that you think they're good for you and maybe they could be good for others, you can open source them as schematics or probably as builders if they fit in the builders category, so other people can benefit from them.
Okay. No, you cannot sing. Yeah. Later today. Yeah, so one advice that I can give, as you noticed, I give a lot of advices. This is, unfortunately, I'm not being paid for that, but so I think it's a good approach to understand your tools. So before you start using NX, for example, or Webpack or Angular CLI, it's a good way to understand what these tools are doing. Because, like what Michael said, you could encounter a problem, and if you have no idea what is happening, you will need to figure it out using logs, right, or some error descriptions, which can be cryptic. But if you understand what the tool is doing, why it's there, its internal mechanics, then you can use the tool as an automation, but not as something that substitutes your knowledge, right? So that's, an advice on that. Okay. I don't know, maybe you guys disagree about that.
No, I just want to say something positive about Narwhal. They're doing a lot for the community. They're giving away for free Angular Console, NX, all the documentation. Recently they open sourced, or how can you say it, made free the Narwhal Connect platform. So now you can go read, I think they have 3 or 4 books, really great books on Angular, different topics. The best book out there on Angular Router, for example. And also they released these Narwhal Connect live sessions for free as well. So who else is doing that? About the NX tooling itself, well, it's for big, complex applications. So if you're building that, well, it's a good set of tools. You can set up boundaries between different modules, have them have the tooling to make sure that those boundaries are being kept between modules. They're not deep imports between modules that are not supposed to have referencing each other, and you can have rebuild the affected modules, test the affected modules in this commit. So it's a very powerful set of tools, but it's not for everyone. But I think it's very nice of them to give all of this away, especially for free, to the community.
Just quickly, so if you're looking for the case study, I think at NGConf, Capital One was doing their session on how successful they are with the NX. They're probably one of the biggest, at least public users of NX. So take a look at that. And yeah, Lars said it very well. And what I really like as well, that they promote the idea of a monorepo. It's such a huge feature for larger enterprises to actually start reusing their code. I don't know, it worked for Google for years, right? Everything except Chrome and Android is in one giant monorepo, right? All languages, everything is in there. And it's such a a great feature to enable collaboration between teams, sharing of things instead of duplicating and releasing under separate versions. I can't say, I could be talking about the good things of Monorepo like for years, but it's a really great feature. So, yeah, try it definitely. Any other questions?
Hi guys, thanks for all talks. And I have a question about more complex applications, like more enterprise solutions, because what I see, it's like missing articles, missing blogs about more complex apps with the bigger structure, for example. And I'm wondering if these articles are missing because it's some niche, it's not popular, or maybe I'm doing something wrong with the architecture and you are just splitting the apps for smaller services, for small apps, for example. Like one example is, for example, using Firebase and NGRX in one app. It's barely possible to find anything on that topic on the internet. But I think it's common solution, or I'm doing something wrong.
Who wants to talk about Firebase and NGRX?
It's okay, just example, but yeah, about more complex apps.
I don't know. We have, Max, we have a number of articles, right, that are targeting enterprise users. Andrew also, Evans, who works at Capital One, writes some things about this. He wrote also about Firebase as well. Yeah, I don't know.
So my take on this is, like when I was a consultant before, I worked for many clients, obviously, and all of them have different architecture, different problems, and obviously different solutions. So if you need to start blogging about this, you will do only this every time. And so I'm preparing a blog post about like the best practices, like from my 10 years of career of consultant before, so I should be released this year. But again, it's maybe, I mean, if you don't find too many articles about this topic, it's because, or maybe some of the developers are signed some NDA, so they can't talk about this kind of stuff, or they're maybe too complex to like talk about, because like usually you find simple articles that explain like how to use simple things, but if you try to explain really complex subjects, it might be not that easy to do. But yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of articles online, not too many, but a couple of them who talk about like common patterns and common issues for enterprise. Yeah, I mean, but if you have some content, we'll be happy to review it and like post it somewhere if you need.
Yeah, what I can add is writing is hard, and writing complex articles on complex topics is 10 times as hard. For example, I have an article about compilers architecture, and compilers very huge, big topic, and so I was just targeting part of the compiler architecture. And just to give you a reference, it took me 3 months to produce this kind of article. And I had to read 2 books to be able to figure it out. And you can imagine that it's 3 months, I don't know, maybe 2-3 hours every single day that I spend. So I think it's mostly because it takes crazy amount of time, and people who work on this kind of projects, they're more focused on figuring it all out. And it'd be great if every team had somebody like a developer advocate, right, who could take that knowledge and put it in words and be focused on that. But that's not the case. However, what we encourage, right, is writing. The more people write, so even if you write one article in a year, But this will be this kind of article you're talking about. And if 100 people do that, right, we will have 100 articles on the web about these complex topics. And yeah, so again, just encourage you to all to contribute to that.
And also watch YouTube. There are lots of videos about enterprise architectural stuff as well. Okay.
So we probably can one last question.
Well, 2 more questions. I'll like give some room. Like an easy one and a complex one.
What is the hand raise?
Come on. Yep. One more question.
Two.
But there's only one. No, already one.
You have made this conference. Thanks a lot for that. And I'm not sure. I think Alex have told that if we don't live for something, we die for nothing. So my question is, what do you live for? So Alex have told that if we don't live for something, we die for nothing. So question is, what do you live for?
It was my quote, tattooed on my leg, actually. But even though in our keynote speeches, we all talked about putting in the hard work and all that. For me, the most important thing is family. So I wouldn't be able to spend this much. So just not to give you the wrong picture, we're not doing this all the time. It's because it's fun, but if you don't have motivation, energy from spending time with someone you love, or maybe some great friends or other professionals that you keep up with, then you don't have all this energy to put back into the community. At least that's the case for me. Family comes first, then comes work, unfortunately, and then I put in some time to do experiments, write articles, watch videos. I spend a lot of time on that, but only when the other things are in order. So only when I can spend time with my family and do my job well, then I'll put in all the rest of the time, basically, with all of this community work.
Yes, I would like to answer from everyone.
Yes, so I 100% agree with Lars here. So family definitely comes first. Again, some families are bigger families, some are smaller families. Some families require a lot of time, and that's fine as well. So family definitely comes first. Work is also there, right? They treat you nice. They pay you. So you definitely, and this is actually a good point here. How many work hours do you do at work? Like, do you do 8 hours because you're being paid for 8 hours? Or do you do more? You consider that free? And probably not, because even if you spend 10 hours at work, you probably are actually working, I can bet that, less than 8 hours, because there are 2 hours of, I don't know, Facebook and other stuff and something else. So if you calculate your productive time that you actually, gave the company back, maybe it's less. So work is second, and then, but sometimes the work that I do externally helps work as well, although it's harder to justify, for example, a lot of Nginx work. I maintain this library at Google as well, so then I sometimes use my work time for that as well. It takes, a lot of time. We don't use NPM. We sync that from the open source, like from GitHub, back to our monorepo in the third-party library packages. So that's why we never rely on what's externally. Another benefit of monorepo. And then everybody benefits right away. They don't have to upgrade their packages and stuff. So, and yeah, giving back to the community is the third one. Having fun is also nice.
Okay. Regarding
Beer?
Yeah, me. I'm too young to have a family, so I'm not living for something. I'm living just because I can. So if I can do something, why not to try? So it's my point.
it's really personal. So for my case, when I started all of this is because I myself learned from others. Like, of course, like I went to school, university, all the stuff, but you only learn the theory. All the practice you learn from other people, your colleagues, or on the internet. So since I learned most of my knowledge from other people online, I decided to share it as well. Every time I learn something, I go blog about it or tell someone or share it with other people. And then it grew again and again. So it became like caring about others and trying to help as much as possible other people is what's really important for me. Of course, after family, because like family is always before anything else, and especially now because I'm going to have a baby in like a few months, so first one, so that would be really important. And yeah, I mean, if you're lucky enough and fortunate, you can find a job, like work, where you also have fun. So it's not work anymore, and like you're really having fun, helping other people, creating content, enjoying your career, professional career, and obviously, that would become the most important thing for you is to like make the future a better world for everyone, with open source, of course, and with sharing knowledge for free.
Okay. As you know, I'm a very serious person, so I also take every moment very serious. There are studies in different countries what makes people happy. And there are studies of people that are close to die, and all the people say the same thing. The best thing in my life was spending time with my family, spending time with my friends. It's not about work or something. And the only reason why people mentioned work was they regretted that they worked too much and spent too less time with their friends. And on top of this is my sentence that I try to take every moment serious. Like I don't say that this situation was more important in my life for another one. It's more or less living in the moment, right?
Okay, cool.
I can also sing.
Yeah, well, regarding this study, the family and friends spending more time with them actually came second. The first was, I wish I had lived life that is more authentic to me. Like the life that I wanted to be instead of being what others want me to be. So this was number one.
Serious?
Yeah.
Serious and honest.
Yeah, well, I'm still trying to figure out what drives me most, and I think that changes once you reach certain level of comfort in your life. At this point, I have a vision of my life, how I want to live when I'm 40, for example, and I'm trying like hell to get there, and along the way to help as many people as possible. So that's
okay,
it.
Thanks.
Okay, so then,
you know, in 10 years or 20 years from now, there will be still technology, there will be still another framework, so focus on your family first.
So, it's what?
Time to...
No, don't sing not yet, Michael. Just hold on a minute. Yeah, so we'll have some given presents, right? DevPro is the co-organizer. They will give some presents, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's an idea. We were supposed to give an Xbox to someone. So people were trying crazily to get here by 6 p.m. No. It's your place on the stage, not mine. Anyways, it's time. So we are ready to pick someone randomly and to give this Xbox. I hope that this person will enjoy that. We have 26 people who registered. So right now it's time.
Павел Андриенко. Спасибо большое за терпение, что дождались, что приняли участие в нашем конкурсе. Вот, желаю вам... Тут была речь о том, что делать и как вдохновляться на классные решения, да? Вот, желаю, чтобы это было такое небольшое дополнение вот, к вашему, скажем так, экспириенсу.
Круто. Спасибо большое.
So that's it then, right? Well, I personally want to thank everyone, every single one